everyone, it's Allison and I am back with another Arty party. Today we are going to make a mini macrame plant hanger, and you may have already seen the other video with the easy overhand net pattern, but this is the square knot chain pattern. Now it looks a little more complicated, but I promise it is worth it. It's super cute. And it's not actually as complicated as it looks. Those nifty braid looking things are actually just rows of square knots. If you've made paracord bracelets before, this is actually going to be a really easy concept for you. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get 8 pieces of 1mm-ish cord cut to 48 inches long. Mine are only 36 inches long, and you're going to see why I said you should use 48 inches. We're going to be getting very close to the end, and depending on how tightly you tie your knots, you might run out if you cut your cords too short. So definitely give yourself a little wiggle room and go for the 48 inches. You can use pretty much any cord you like, but I recommend something that's not slippery. This is cotton cord. Jute and other natural fibers are going to be very grippy. The knots won't come undone after you do them. So recommend that if you can, but use what you want to use. Yarn's fine, rope's fine, whatever you got. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get your 8 pieces of string, and you're going to kind of line up the bottoms of one side because we're going to fold them all in half. Now, if you've got one of our little kits, then this part's already done for you. But if you're starting from scratch, once you've got yours cut, you kind of gotta line them up and then match up the ends. And you just kind of want to wrap it over your finger and fold it in half. And oh, I forgot. We actually need, I forgot which project I was doing. You only want 4 of these. So let's separate these out. So we want 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to set those aside. We're going to use those in just a little bit. Those are for our braids. So now let's make sure that our 4 pieces, are evened up and folded in the middle. Just kind of wrap it around your finger, and we're going to do an overhand knot. It's just your standard knot, but we want to leave a loop up at the top so that we can hang up our planter. So just kind of wrap it around your finger, take the tail and flip it up. Make sure you get all your pieces. And you're going to want to duck under that loop and pull everything through. So you can see just your standard everyday knot, but you want to pull it up under here. You don't want to leave too big of a loop, but you don't want to have it too small either. So once you get a good sized loop, get your finger out of there and pull it as snug as you can. You're going to want to pull this way a little bit. You might want to pull on each of your cords, or you can just kind of yoink on them a little bit. So that's your hanging loop. Super easy. Now we are going to divide this into pairs. So we have 4 pieces now, we have 8. So you want to just kind of try and pick the cords that are already next to each other. They kind of split themselves up. 2, 2, 2, and 2. So we have like half an octopus. We have a quadrupus. It's a quadrupus. So now on each of these, we are going to do a square knot braid 2 inches down. Doesn't have to be exact, but if you got a ruler handy, go on ahead. We're going to do a square knot braid 2 inches down on each of these. Before I do that though, I am going to show you how to do a square knot braid with I actually have some colored cord so that you can keep the process straight if this is your first time doing it. Now, if you want to, you can take a little bit of tape, regular tape, artist tape, whatever you want, and tape your hanging loop to the table. or a clipboard or a book or a board or something, just to try to keep them straight. For this part, I actually recommend taking your center cords and taping towards the bottom of those too, so that they don't move. Pretend these are a stick. They're not going anywhere. So, because there's a lot of left and right in this technique, I've actually dubbed our strings Bonnie and Clyde. So, for the sake of string that I had on hand, that shows up really good on camera, Bonnie's gonna be this bright magenta, and Clyde is gonna be this sea green. So I've attached the two to it. I've made basically a split string with a nice weaver's knot. And we're gonna go, so we're gonna pretend that this is one of our pieces. I'm gonna show you how to do the square knot chain. So you're gonna move down about 2 inches, and you are going to find the halfway point on your string. Obviously your string won't actually, oh, I gotta go the other way first because I gotta have Bonnie on the left and Clyde on the right to start with. Obviously yours won't be two-toned. I am just showing you how this works to start off with. All right, so just tie a regular knot at the halfway point of your cord. You will not have a tiny little bow in there holding your colors together. All right, there we go. All right, so just pull that nice and snug. So for our purposes, this is Bonnie and this is Clyde. And I call the step based on who is going from left to right. So Clyde moves first, but this part I call Bonnie. So to start off with, you're gonna take Clyde and you're gonna put that string this way over the center strands and kind of angle down. So kind of make a loop like this. Then you're gonna take Bonnie. Bonnie goes over Clyde, under the center strands, and up through the loop between Clyde and the center strands. So you can see she goes over Clyde, under the center, and up through this thing. And then you tighten it up. Now, Bonnie's on the right and Clyde's on the left. Clyde's gonna come over and do his little loop again. Bonnie's gonna go over Clyde, under the center strands, and up through Clyde's loop again. And now we have finished one whole knot, and you will see there is a bump here. There's a little loop here made by Bonnie, and there's a little loop here made by Bonnie. If you ever get lost on what knot you're on, just count the bumps on the side. You want to have 5 bumps on this side and 5 bumps on this side when you're done with the chain, because that means you have done 5 whole square knots. So again, to start another group, you're going to do Clyde this way. Bonnie goes over, under, and up and through. Clyde comes over, and then Bonnie goes over, under, and up and through. So you can see how this just keeps going back and forth to make a chain. And you will know if it's not right because something will stick out weird, or you will end up with a bump in a place that is not supposed to be. You will know. In that case, you can just back up. So let's see, we've got 3, 4, 4 total, and this should be 5 total. Now, you can see this is actually a really short little, is a really short little chain because the yarn I'm using for color is actually a lot smaller than the cord I'm using for the base yarn. But I just wanted you to see how the colors come out. So on the back side, Bonnie kind of goes back and forth and Clyde makes the bumps, and on the front, Clyde goes back and forth and Bonnie makes the bumps. That's the important part we want to remember. And at the end, you should have a Bonnie over here and a Clyde over here. That is how the chain works. So now let's do it for real. I'm gonna untape this example. Hopefully that made sense. And we're gonna do this for real. So we've got our friend here. Gonna tape down our hanging loop. Oh, get out of the way, my friend. Scissors. We don't need you till much later. We've got our groups of 2. I'm just gonna push these off to the side and we're gonna work on this one. Actually, you know what? We're gonna start with this one. We'll do that one last, just to make my life easier. Again, I'm gonna tape this down just so it's easier to do the square knot braiding. Chains, braids, whatever we want to call them. So we're gonna get one of our extra cords, find the middle-ish. Really, it's easier to just tie your knot and then grab both ends and then tighten the knot up. Really, that's easier. Let's face it, we learned that a long time ago. All right, so this should be about 2 inches below the big knot that gathered them all together. So we're gonna scooch that up a smidge. There we go. Pull this nice and tight. So for this, no colors this time. Moving up. This is Bonnie and this is Clyde. So Clyde comes over here. So you can see now we've added a bunch of strings. There will be, this is why there were 8 to start with, there will be a whole bunch to play with by the time we get done. So Clyde goes there, Bonnie goes over Clyde, under the middle, and up through the loop. See how much bigger this is? So Clyde sits there, Bonnie goes over Clyde, under the middle, and up through the loop. And that's 1. This is dun dun dun, and 2. That's 2 knots total. Clyde comes over. After a while, this just really gets very chill and zen. You can just flip Clyde and tie Bonnie. Flip Clyde and tie Bonnie. You see, though, why I named that. It just makes your life easier to name them than to be left right. Because they keep moving. The cats are sad that they have been banished from this recording. Let's see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I gotta make 1 more on this one. That's why counting the bumps is very useful. But really, they cannot be trusted with string. They would be eating Bonnie and Clyde every time. And then you wouldn't get to learn. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, I've got 5 knots. There's a bump on each side, so I know those are in the right place. So this is going to be called chain A. So we can just untape this and scooch it over, and we're going to do this again. Like I said, you'll probably either find this really tedious or really soothing. really not any in between with most folks. Love it or hate it kind of thing. Again, you're gonna grab your ends with your knot, find the middle, get it pretty even. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you can get it pretty even, that's good. And try to scoot it up so that it's 2 inches below that knot. Doot, doot, doot. There we go. And you're gonna wanna make sure it's really tight, and you're gonna do another chain. First time I did this, I was very confused. And I was like, oh, now I got it. Don't worry, it will make sense. It will make sense. Please ignore the attempted cat burglary going on. If you can hear something. One day they are going to figure out how to open the door. And then I'm going to be in trouble. Because, like I said, string, cats, macrame, not a good look. All right, let's see, I've got 2. This is 3. This one will be 4. And then 5. Oh, I have to do both sides of it. I'm basically singing in my head, Bonnie Clyde, Bonnie Clyde. All right, let's see. Should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that one is done. All right, so I'm going to do the other 2 and skip ahead so that you don't have to watch me do it, but we're going to do this one and this one the exact same way. Okay, so I'm back and we've now got chains E, F, G, and H. So we've got one row up here of A, B, C, and D, and they kind of split off and join back together to make E, F, G, and H. And we're in the home stretch now. You're actually done with your square knot chains. So you're going to take each of these and you're going to go down about ½ an inch, maybe the width of your thumb, depending on how big your thumb is. But so just leave a little space so we can see the cute little strands, and you're going to tie a little overhead knot under each of those last set of chains we just did. So like I said, it doesn't have to be very far down. You just want to show off about ½ an inch, 3/4 of an inch, not a full inch if you can manage it. Just so we have enough string for the rest of this. So you're going to get a knot right there. And make sure you don't grab between. Don't grab between them yet. That's the next stage. So you just want to gather up all the strings. So chain E gets knot E, and chain F gets knot F, if you're following along with the written directions on our website. It's down in the description if you need it. Just gonna get a nice little overhand knot in each of these. So now we need to make place for our little pot to sit. These should all be roughly the same length, pretty close. That way they line up better in the next step. Like I said, you can see some of my strings are getting pretty short, so give yourself a little more leeway. Dun, dun, dun. Now, if you're using much thicker cord than this, you're going to need to give yourself even more string to work with, because the thicker it is, the chunkier your knots are and the more space those take up. Okay, so you've got a knot under each of yours. We're going to join those together to make a little place for your pot to sit. So I want you to take 2 strands, and I try to take 1 long strand and 1 short strand just to make my life easier. Take 1 long strand and 1 short strand from, we'll say this is E. And you're going to take 1 long strand and 1 short strand from F, the next one to it. Make sure you're reaching next to each other, not behind. Otherwise you end up with a very interesting net. You'll confuse yourself very quickly. So make sure they're neighbors, not across the street. Next door neighbors, not across the street neighbors. If you've gotten down to the short pieces like I have, this is gonna get interesting. I'll do my long strings first. You get to watch me struggle a little bit. All right, so now you want to snug this knot up as best you can, as close as possible to the first set of knots. I have a really, really loose little bit right there, but that's okay. You might need to pull each of these strings separately to tighten them up. That's the really loose one. And you can also pull them away from each other to make them tighten up as much as possible. That was really weird. I think I actually pulled something loose in a way I did not want to. So now I've got 2 leftover strings on this one, and I've got 2 leftover strings on this one, and I have a new knot right here. We're gonna call that M. Or wait, did I skip ahead? I might have skipped ahead to W. Yeah, I skipped ahead to W so that we wouldn't get into weirdness. So this is knot W, so we've got knot E, knot F, and knot W. So We're gonna make sure that we're going to the next door neighbor. You're gonna have to rotate everything a little bit to the right. Again, please ignore the attempted cat burglary going on. I promise they've been fed. They just can't stand it when I do something without them. Silly cats. So we're gonna go to the next chain over. So this is gonna be chain G and not G. We're gonna move H over out of the way. We're gonna take 2 bits from G and the leftovers from F, and we're going to tie those together. So because we're tying a couple from each one, this will basically, joining them together lets us make a little pocket for the little knot pocket for the pot to sit in. So we're going to snug that up. Give these all a good tug, make sure it's nice and tight. So this is not X, made from F and G. I'm going to take those leftovers from G and we're going to come over here to H. Now make sure that H is flipped the right way. You don't want to get it so that, this is really hard to show you, you don't want to get it so that it's twisted up like this when you tie it, or it'll be tangled forever and ever. We don't want that. So make sure that it's flat, if you will. Make sure that all the bits go the same direction when you're doing this, and you're going to take those leftover bits from G, and you're going to take 2 strings from H. We're going to make another knot. Oh, I am definitely in danger of twisting here. There we go. Okay. It's always better to take the strings that are closest to each other instead of from the other side, because then you will get a little bit of a looping going on. It's a little weird when it happens. It's not really gonna hurt anything, it's just kind of annoying. Okay, this time I definitely have to do the long ones first and the short ones